to the Authentic Health Coaching Show. My name is Tom Corson-Knowles, founder of Authentic Health Coaching. We want to thank you for subscribing to the show today, and so we have an amazing free gift for you with Dr. Corson's top 5 nutrition tips. It is the #1 guide to taking your health to the next level, and you can get your copy for free at AuthenticHealthCoach.com. Today on the show, we have an incredible guest for you, Karen Sherwood. Karen is the founder of Nutritious America, and you met her partner Abra Papa on a show recently. And today Karen talks about nutrition. She's an expert in nutrition, and she talks a lot about whole food nutrition, the importance of whole food nutrition, getting enough fruits, vegetables, berries, whole grains, legumes and beans, which are the same thing, and nuts and seeds in your diet. It's so important that you have whole food nutrition in your diet. She talks to you about why that is, about all the nutrients and enzymes and phytochemicals that are found in these whole foods, and why it's so important to make those small changes every day that over time will build your snowball of health going into the right direction. And that's what I've been preaching for many years, that it's so important that you start with just one change at a time and then just move from there one step at a time, one step at a time. An apple a day really can keep the doctor away. That is, if you stick to it, if you actually do those little small habits every day. And so Karen talks to you about exactly how to do it and what to do. So enjoy the show, take great notes, and make it an incredible day.
Well, Karen, thanks so much for being with us today on the Authentic Health Coaching Show. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and what got you interested in nutrition?
Great. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm a graduate of the Global College of Natural Medicine. I have a degree from Emerson College in Boston for communication performing arts. Lots of yoga training along holistic modalities and things like that. I don't know, I guess it started when I was a kid. My sister, my older sister, was into nutrition from a very early age. She would always read the back of all the cereal boxes and the packaged foods and everything that we were eating, and always had something to say about it. And I guess I didn't really make the connection as a kid, but it wasn't until I got a little bit older that, wow, she really knows what she's talking about. And, she kind of went into school to be a dietitian. And then I branched out a little bit and really was driven toward the holistic side of things. So it's kind of fun to have it in the family, bounce stuff off of each other once in a while. But we both, in our own way, have helped a lot of people, and it's been the most rewarding experience, I think, these last probably 6 or 7 years for me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And does your sister work in nutrition as well?
Yes, she does. She's over on the East Coast, and I'm over here in L.A., and we must talk on the phone at least once or twice a day, just kind of sharing, stories and ideas, because it is a little bit of a different path, going for, dietitian and holistic nutrition. So, she works more in hospitals and things like that, and, and I've got my own clients with all different, from all ends of the spectrum, different issues from weight loss to, cancer prevention to heart disease, blood sugar, helping people, just help people really get their lives on track. So it's in the family.
That's awesome. And so what are some of the differences between, a dietitian and a holistic nutritionist?
Well, they've got the ADA. They've got all those rigid rules to follow, I think. And, in my professional opinion, from what I've seen, a lot of them are a little bit outdated. And I think that she even agrees with that. So a lot of times, if she has a question about a supplement or a food, for example, she'll oftentimes, call me and ask me what I think first before she, goes ahead and makes a suggestion to a client. So I think that's kind of the bigger thing. I think that holistic nutritionists are a little bit more cutting edge. Not to put down the dietitians, but I think those are probably the basic differences, I would say. And Nutritious America is, my company. We kind of veer a little bit closer to the holistic side. I mean, we definitely are east meets west as far as the different modalities that we will suggest to our clients. But for the most part, we come from the holistic or whole mindset.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about the difference between the East and West then, because I think it's a big issue, and a lot of people, they understand Western medicine, and it's mostly about, treatment. Once you've got the cancer or the heart disease, let's treat it. And in
right.
the East, they're a lot more about prevention. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk to my clients about this a lot because I think everyone always wants a quick fix. I've just found out, let's say I've got stage 2, stage 3 cancer, God forbid. They're told to talk to a nutritionist, and they just want the easy way out. And of course their first inclination is to go to an oncologist, where they'll just go ahead and prescribe radiation or chemotherapy, and they're not really focused on, I think, really what the problem is, what's going wrong inside the body. I always explain, and just using cancer as an example, is that it's not just one illness, it's several different metabolic functions going awry at the same time. And so to keep the immune system strong would probably be my first thing for the clients. And of course, working with doctors can be difficult at times, but we definitely go from the more, preventative phase, and if it is a little bit late, then it's more adjuvant therapies, I think, if they do end up having to do, let's say, chemo or radiation or things like that. And for weight loss, it's the same thing, and for heart disease and, endocrine disorders and things. Like, everyone just wants the prescription. But I do have to say, especially in the last 5 years, my clientele has gotten a lot more health savvy. It does depend on the generation, I think. But especially, some of the younger people, they're really starting to get it. It's not just about a quick fix. It's about fixing what's going wrong inside the body. So that's actually good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about that, too, because I know a lot of people, if they've got that cancer diagnosis or that heart disease diagnosis, they think prevention somehow doesn't apply to them anymore. But,
right.
Even though you have heart disease, you might develop other things as well. So focusing on prevention can be so important, isn't that right?
Exactly. It's you almost want to set the stage, in your body. I always say, just to be able to, I guess not necessarily just worrying about not getting disease, but actually feeling good and having energy, every single day. People think that just because they're not sick means that they're okay, and I think that that's definitely a fallacy. I think that you want to live your life with vitality. You want to have energy. You want to, be able to chase your grandkids around. You don't want to have depression. I mean, there's all these different things that we're seeing, and just because someone doesn't have something wrong with them written down on paper doesn't necessarily mean that they're okay, So they think, yeah, prevention, what do I have to worry about? My parents are fine, they have clean bills of health, but yet there's something off, yet they're tired all the time, or they're constipated, or they're depressed. And I feel like there's, all those things can be eliminated if people just paid attention to the way they live their life. And nutrition is obviously, I believe, 75% of it, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the energy then, because that's such a common thing. I mean, so many people, they're just like you said, they're fatigued all the time. So how does your diet affect your energy level?
Well, we live in this caffeine, refined sugar, processed food society where it's, instant gratification. If my energy's slumping, I'm just going to go to Starbucks and grab a Frappuccino. And of course that's going to help. I think that, people are kind of designed to just gravitate towards what's going to help me in 5 minutes. Even though an hour or two later, they kind of slump. My suggestion to these people is, if you want to have a cup of coffee, it's okay. It's not like I'm going to say don't ever have these things again, or don't ever have sugar, or any of these things that are going to give you energy. But have you tried, a B complex, or have you tried greens, or, starting your day off with like a really good protein smoothie that's packed with nutrients? I think no one thinks about that. They're like, well, that's going to take too long to prepare, or, multivitamins always make me sick to my stomach and whatever. And they haven't really taken the time, to pick the right ones, or to learn how to make something that's actually pretty easy and quick for them, or to map out their day, plan a little bit so that they'll have an extra 10 minutes, to do something that their body's actually craving instead of just these quick fixes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about weight then, because I know weight is such a big issue, and it's also one of the common reasons people have fatigue all the time. So what are some things that you recommend for people who want to lose weight or forage to food or things like that?
Yeah, well, weight loss is big. And, there are lots of mistakes people make. I'll start with that. A couple that stand out would be that people have this all-or-nothing mentality, which can really create some major roadblocks for them. They'll say to themselves, I need to lose weight. But the mind immediately goes to this deprivation mode. And so they either restrict calories or over-exercise, and they create something that's just not sustainable. So this now diet represents something that they're either on or off. And chances are when they're off, they're going to slip back into this overindulgence to make up for the time that they've lost while they're on the diet. And so this vicious circle begins. And the other mistake people make is that they enter these, meal programs or diet programs that temporarily eliminate entire food groups, or one macronutrient, for example, carbs, fat, or protein. And I should mention, a lot of these diets do work in the short term, but again, they're not sustainable or realistic. And in fact, some can actually be dangerous as people develop all kinds of nutritional deficiencies and in some cases toxicity, depending on what food or macronutrient is prevalent in this diet plan, let's say. So all kinds of things can come up with this. Much better to create a meal plan that's realistic, balanced, and something that they can live with every day is what I would say.
Well, what does balance look like to you?
Well, balance, I think, again, would be not depriving yourself. I always like to say eating, 4 to 5 meals a day, spaced out maybe 3 hours to keep the blood sugar level steady, getting a little amount of protein with each meal, because I think that's another way people go wrong. So creating balance as far as nutrition. And also, we talk about eating for entertainment, and eating for fuel and nourishment. And those are two very different things. I think we need to have both. So, it's not about never having chocolate cake again or never having a glass of wine again, but it's just creating a balance, while you're trying to lose weight or get healthy or whatever your goal may be, to go ahead and do that once or twice a week. Maybe not every single day, but it's mindset, not telling yourself, I can't have this. Once people give the food too much power, then they end up going down a very slippery slope. So that's what I would say balance is all about.
Absolutely. And, I think it's so important that you understand that it's okay to eat things in moderation, but at the same point, you don't want to be eating the same fast food meals every single day. And a lot of people just get addicted to that food. So why are so many people feel like they have these cravings for these foods and they can't help themselves?
Yeah, well, first of all, the food is designed to be addictive. I mean, just if you look at something as simple as a chocolate chip cookie, you've got the salt, you've got the sugar. I mean, these are things primally that we're gravitated towards, these flavors. I believe even most fast food restaurants have developed almost like in a laboratory, I almost want to say, putting these ingredients together, or I guess the lack of a better word, if you want to call them ingredients, like a French fry, for example. There's that right amount of fat, the right amount of salt and sugar. So, there's two components to this. I think that there's an emotional component, and that is that it's, of course, the instant gratification that I mentioned, and the comfort, and the fact that you can get this food for relatively, very inexpensive and very quick. But then there's also this physical component, and that is that the food is designed to be addicting. I mean, looking at something like a Diet Coke, there's caffeine and there's also aspartame, and those two things together are, synergistically addictive. So it's more difficult for me almost to get some clients off of Diet Coke than it is, off of a drug, off of like things like cocaine. Like people actually put those two things in the same category. So, there is, when I talk to clients, yes, I believe that there is absolutely an emotional component to it, but we can't forget the physical component.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I saw a study that they did in lab mice, and they fed one group cocaine and the other group sugar water, and the group that was in sugar water became more addicted to that than the cocaine.
Wow, I'm not surprised. It's crazy. And so, my suggestions to these people are, let's say, someone comes into my office and they're coming from like 7 Diet Cokes a day. Of course, I'm not going to say, okay, tomorrow you're having none. But what we'll do is we'll kind of lean out of it. So tomorrow maybe you have half of that, and then see where that goes for a few days. And then, I'll bring up, I'll give them other options. Something. I've got a few of sodas. There are sodas now made with stevia, for example, or erythritol, natural sugar alcohol, or even club soda with a little bit of like maybe a pomegranate juice or a spritzer with some fresh lime. There's so many options now for people that I feel like they can't really make a ton of excuses anymore. There are options, and you don't necessarily have to have a Whole Foods near you to find these options. So that's my other thing. I'm never going to tell someone don't eat that or don't drink that without having substitutions for them.
I think that's so important, and especially when it comes to drinks, because like the average American is eating like 500 or more calories a day just from their drinks, from their soda pops and smoothies and milkshakes and things. And that's just contributing to the diabetes and the obesity and all this stuff. And like you said, there's these simple, tasty, delicious substitutes that we can put in place of those and just make a huge difference in your health.
Yes, it does. It does. And sometimes they're required. I'll bring in things like I do different snack tastings for my clients. They'll come in and I'll say, okay, well, today I want you to try these 3 things. And it might be something that looks like an Oreo cookie and, that tastes like an Oreo cookie, but it's not. It's actually a different brand, and there's a whole different list of ingredients in here. And a lot of times they don't even know the difference. And that just makes me so happy, because I say if there's one thing a week that these people can change, that all of us can change really, it would really make a difference for them, I think. And they get really excited, and they want to share it with their families and their friends. And, and I don't work for any of these companies, at all. I want to make that very clear. There's just, Abra and myself, we attend these natural food expos and conventions and seminars and things, and we're learning constantly about new cutting-edge products. And things that we can share with our clients. And if something doesn't taste good, then of course we're not going to suggest it, because then immediately they're going to assume that this is health food, and I don't want anyone ever feeling like they have to restrict themselves or that they're on a diet, so I've got to drink or eat this thing that I don't like. I think food should be something that's enjoyed. But I got to say, 99% of the things that we do taste that are healthy are actually delicious. So that's a good thing, too.
Absolutely. I mean, you can eat a very healthy diet and still have amazing, delicious food.
Exactly.
Right?
And feel good.
Your diet, too, your taste will change.
Yes. Yes, 100%.
Absolutely. So let's talk about making those changes, though, because, anyone can listen to this call and decide they're not going to drink diet soda anymore. Maybe they're going to drink iced tea instead if they make it home. And that's easy to make kind of that first change. But how do you make the next change and the next change and the next change?
Well, it's all about creating a habit. And so I usually tell people it takes maybe about 2 to 3 weeks to actually create a habit. There was a story I had with a client, and this is funny. It was all about habit and association with her. It was, she said, Karen, every single day I walk through my house. She walks in, there's the living room right in front of her, the kitchen's on her left. And every single time she walks through the door, she goes immediately to the kitchen, and there's cookies usually right there. And she has about 4 or 5 cookies, and then she walks upstairs, goes and takes a shower or whatever, and goes on with her evening. And she said, I cannot break myself of this habit. And so I said, you know what? One day, let's try go in the back door instead. Just mix things up a little bit. And she came to me the next week, and she said, you're never going to believe this. I walked in the back door, and the steps were right in front of her. So as soon as she walked in, she just walked right up the steps and went on with her night and forgot about the cookies. So, it's one of those things where I think, it could be, let's say you're, the drive-through on your way home is 2 blocks away and it's on the left-hand side. Well, maybe you drive a different way home. See what happens. And I think that maybe, the first couple of times it might be a little weird. It might, you might feel like something's missing. But, you give it a week or two and you're not going to miss it. You're going to create a whole different habit. Maybe there's a Whole Foods on your way home now. Or, maybe you'll end up, stopping in a park, going for a walk or meeting a friend or, going upstairs and taking a bath instead of going to those, those addictive foods. So there's all different kinds of fun stories I hear from clients about, just recreating new habits. And yes, you've got to be patient with yourself, but it's very, it's easier as time goes by.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think you're so right about changing some of the simple things that you do just unconsciously, like the way you drive home from work. I mean, if you drive past McDonald's every day, go a different way.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
If that's what you're holding you back, then just create a new pattern of behavior and just have fun with it. Explore.
Exactly. And I know that for a lot of people it's a little bit more complicated than that, and I don't want to ever trivialize or make things sound more simple than it is, but a lot of times little things do make a difference. So of course, someone who has things like, addictive let's say addicted to these refined foods and processed foods and fast foods, of course I would put them on a good supplement regimen filled with nutrition and whole food-based nutrition. Get them eating foods that their bodies are craving. So starting with that as well as playing these little, fun games with them about substitution. So it definitely, we bring it on, all ends. I'm not just focusing on, just don't drive home that way. But there's, it comes from a lot of different angles, I guess I would say. So the physical, the emotional, the habitual, lifestyle, all of that kind of comes into play.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, let's talk about something you just mentioned, whole food nutrition. What does that mean?
Well, it means eating foods, for the most part, simply put, that don't come from packages. Foods that are as close to nature as possible, so fresh fruits, vegetables, I would say whole grains, healthy fats, which I think most people are very deficient in, and creating a balance of color on your plate, little things like that. So foods that are bioavailable to the body, and as far as supplementation, I think that should be no different. I think we don't need to have synthetic nutrients. We need to be getting our supplements from whole food sources.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, I'm totally on board with that. But what is in whole food nutrition for people who aren't really familiar with it? What is in a whole food, like say a raw carrot that's not in something that you get in a packaged cookie or candy?
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, you're getting fiber. You're getting all the carotenoids that would be in the carrot, and you're getting a full spectrum of nutrients that work together. And I think what happens is sometimes you'll go ahead and get bread, let's say from the store, or some kind of packaged food. And they'll go ahead and strip it and refine it and bleach it and do all these things to it. And then they'll throw back some isolated nutrients, like they'll throw back some B vitamins, that your body's really not even going to absorb, let's say. And the clients are saying, but look, there's vitamins in here. But I'm trying to explain that that's not how the body sees it. Just to digest some of these things that look like they've got all these vitamins, it's actually pulling minerals from your bones just to process and digest these things. So, if you're going to go ahead and eat a carrot or eat a tomato and, eat foods that actually, greens, spinach, garlic, herbs and spices, these are foods that are actually, they're bioavailable to the body. The body's going to immediately absorb all the nutrients that are in them. So it's a complete difference from foods that, you'd get in packages that just actually have a nutrient written down on them.
Absolutely. You're totally right about that. And, if you just look at like an apple, for instance, an apple, scientists have discovered over 10,000 phytonutrients or plant nutrients in just one apple. And it's like, and those are just the ones we discovered, right? There's probably many more we don't know about. And so I think we've become so arrogant in the scientific community in the West to say, oh, well, vitamin C or vitamin E or this one thing, if I put this in the bread, that's going to make it healthy for you, right? Whereas Mother Nature is saying, hey, there's tens of thousands. We need all of these to be healthy.
Exactly. And I think, there's so much misinformation being put, as far as marketing goes, I think, and as far as what people see on commercials and what's on packaged foods, that people are misled. And it's it's a lot of these bigger companies that are just, it's just factory farms and just trying to pound out food by the millions, and it's not real food anymore. We're not eating real food anymore. And, because they put something like light on a package or fat-free or low-carb, I'm trying to get my clients to understand that doesn't mean anything. In fact, that often puts up a red flag. If I'm going to see a lot of different promises written on a packaged food, that makes me want to say, let's flip this guy over and see what the actual ingredients are.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some more of those marketing misconceptions. I mean, what are some of those things that most people, the average American, thinks, oh, well, this is good for you, but in reality, it can be the complete opposite.
Right. Well, I think the first thing has to do with numbers. I think we're so programmed to look at numbers. So the first thing people want to do is flip the package over and see how many calories are in something, So it'll say light, LITE, and then it'll say less than 100 calories. And, so I think that companies are smart and they know that people gravitate towards numbers. So I think that that's the first thing. Things like fat-free, which is probably the biggest pet peeve of mine. Because in my opinion, if something like cheese, for example, or a food that's supposed to have fat, now does not have fat, it's no longer real food. And I think that people are starting to tell, the difference between these things. It's usually filled with a ton of chemicals or sodium. Even restaurants, make this mistake. They'll have this little section on their menu, like the light favorites or the guiltless grill or all these things. And, they may say, they're 400 calories or less, but what are they actually eating? Is it actually better to have this 700-calorie hamburger than it is to have this healthy black bean thing that has 7,000 milligrams of sodium? So I think that I'm not saying that the burger's healthier, but I'm just trying to make people aware that, things like restaurants and big companies want their foods to taste good. So they're going to find a way, no matter what they put on the labels.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, it's all about, psychology as well, because when people, when this new diet comes out and says, oh, well, fat's bad for you, well, then all of these big companies make all these products without fat in them. And then we think, oh, well, these must be the healthy products. But it's just the same processed junk with all the sugar and the sodium, like you said, put in there. And then people think, well, that's healthy for me now because this new diet came out.
Yeah, I think that, just to use the fat one as an example, I think in the 80s, when this fat-free, when this whole thing came out, I think the obesity epidemic, tripled, so everyone was eating all these, fat-free foods, and they were just thinking, wow, they're free because there's no fat, and it made people fatter and fatter and fatter, and now they're deficient in a million things. So it's and I see this every single day. It's gotten to be just ridiculous, and I don't blame a lot of them because it's just misinformation being put out. So I think one of the things we would do at Nutritious America is sort of demystify nutrition for people and just break it down very simply. What kinds of foods do you want to be eating? What kinds of foods do you want to be staying away from? And how can we realistically implement a diet or meal plan for these people that's something that they can sustain?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I think it's so important to have some place where you can actually go to get the real information. The truth behind the nutrition, right? Because with all these billions of dollars being spent a year by these major food companies and fast food companies to kind of get people to buy their products, we get so confused about what is true and what's not true. Are eggs good for you or are eggs bad for you? Every week it's like a new study comes out.
Yes, exactly. And I actually think go ahead and have some eggs, and because what they're going to do is they're going to come in and say, I only eat egg whites, and then they open up their soda. So really, things like what are they afraid of cholesterol? Which is ridiculous because it's these, refined foods and alcohol and all these things that are actually raising cholesterol, not an egg yolk. So there's also that. There's such a disconnect that people get. They're eating things like fake eggs and, I don't have a problem with egg whites, but at the same time, don't just have egg whites, but then open up a can of Diet Coke with it. It's just kind of, it's not making much sense there.
Right. Well, and I think that's what happens a lot, too, with all the misinformation is that people start to rationalize. They say, oh, well, I'm eating these egg substitutes, for instance, and so it's okay, I can have my diet soda now, right? They think, well, I did one good thing for my body, so now I can have this other one and treat myself. And they kind of get stuck in that habit or that pattern of always rewarding themselves for making a good choice, but the good choice was just something that was marketed to them.
Right, exactly. And it's if because it's good for me, for example, and then they'll come to me and say, how come I'm not losing weight? Or how come I have diabetes? Or I'm insulin resistant, or all of these. I mean, it's become so simple right now. What did you eat the last 3 weeks? And then they'll go ahead and lay their diet out for me, and it's basically 4 or 5 coffees, and then that, kind of suppresses their appetite, and so there's no breakfast. And then they'll end up having, they'll say, oh, I had a salad. And I'll say, okay, well, what was in your salad? Because they think that they're being so good, by having the salad. And then they'll say, oh, well, some lettuce and croutons and a little shredded carrot in there. And then I had some ranch dressing with it. And so then, in my opinion, I'll just, okay, well, so let's talk about the nutrition that was in that salad. And then they're like, oh, well, I thought I was doing something good. Or even worse, they'll say, Karen, you're going to be so proud of me. I got this spinach salad, and I put in, bell pepper and broccoli and, any kind of vegetable that they can find. And guess what? I didn't put any dressing. I had no fat whatsoever. And I'll say, well, that's great. You didn't absorb any of these vitamins. So I think some people actually try to be too good, and in their quest to be too good, they end up, becoming deficient in things like the healthy fats that I was talking about. So there's also that spectrum. There's also those people that kind of go a little bit overboard, I think, because they're trying to be so good and they're trying to weigh their meals and they're trying to, be so precise, and then they start to over-exercise and they become a little bit compulsive. So we're also on to that, to those people that don't just relax a little bit. So we've got all kinds of clients.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then. Let's break it down to, its simplest parts if we can. I mean, what things do people absolutely need to include in their diet if they're going to live the healthiest life they really want to live?
Well, I mean, like I said, whole foods, I think, needs to be number one. Our philosophy at Nutritious America is basically it's what you're not eating. So it isn't really the problem, that you had this chocolate cake. It's when was the last time you had broccoli, or kale or spinach, or have you ever tried kale? Or, things like olive oil or coconut oil or herbs and spices, things like that. I think that people forget, so what I'll do is I'll create a little list of these would be the best carbohydrates, these would be the best proteins for you, and these would be the best fats for you, and to always have a little bit of a combination through the day of these things. And I think what's right for one person may not be right for another. Some people may be sensitive to gluten or dairy, let's say, for example, or some people do fine with it. Some people, I think, are better off plant-based diets, but then there are those people that do a little better with some meat. So it's all about bio-individuality. I've got tons of questions that I would ask a client, looking at them, seeing what kinds of diets they've been on, how their body responds to certain foods, and then we just go from there. But for the most part, everything is whole food based.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're totally right about it's what you're not eating. It's it's okay to have dessert every once in a while, but if you're not eating the fruits and the vegetables, the things that are protecting your body from oxidative stress and all this damage going on, then it doesn't matter, what it says on the label, you're not getting the nutrients that protect your body. And so if you just focus on adding back those fruits and vegetables and those whole foods, then it's okay to have some other areas that you're still working on, but at least you're getting the protection that you need.
Exactly. There are things that we come across just in the environment that we can't always control. I live in Los Angeles, and we're sitting on a bed of smog. I have my BlackBerry to my head right now. There are things that we can't always control. Even grilling meat, in the summertime, everybody's freaking out about that, microwaving in plastics and things. And I think that, yes, you want to avoid those things, but we can't always. And I think that the only thing we can do is focus on what we have control over, and that is what we're putting into our body. So nutrition. It all comes back to nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's so right, is that, you got to focus on what you can change, because there are many things in life that you can't change, and there's no use in worrying about it,
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing with us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about where we can find more information about your company, and if people want to look you up online?
Yeah, absolutely. We're nutritiousamerica.com. And we're basically, a wellness company. Like I mentioned, we specialize in online or in-person nutrition consultations in New York and Los Angeles. We do corporate lectures, weight loss programs, And we also specialize in nutrition therapy for heart disease, cancer, diabetes, endocrine disorders, and women's health. And, yeah, you can find us at nutritiousamerica.com. We even have materials that are on there as far as our teleclasses, where to find us, a calendar of events and things where Abra and I will be speaking. We're also going to be starting wellness retreats, so we'll be maybe visiting your area at some point. So really good to just check the website for more details on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. You've just shared a wealth of knowledge and information with us today, and really appreciate it. I know it's going to help so many people and help a lot of people get healthy.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.
Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles again. Hope you enjoyed the show today with Karen Sherwood. Isn't she absolutely amazing? Remember to come check us out at AuthenticHealthCoach.com. Come join the community of like-minded people like you who are passionate about health, wellness, nutrition, and fitness. And remember, you can get your free report with Dr. Corson's top 5 nutrition tips at AuthenticHealthCoach.com. Wishing you an absolutely incredible day. Take care.